All right, here we are. This has been a long time in the making, TR. We tried it, back in the summer and didn't quite work out with the connection. But welcome to the show here, longtime friend and what would we call compatriot, call
I guess
battle
we've
heads.
really, I've said before, we've had very similar career paths in a lot of ways, and not just hockey afterwards, and a lot of the same friends. We come from the same vibe of the universe, whatever that may be.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, anyways, welcome to the show, Terry Ryan. Good to have you, man.
Thanks. It's good to be here, and you're doing great. I love your shows, Pods. Everybody and their brother has a podcast now, right?
Yeah.
Everybody does, but yours is steadily improving, and I love it.
Meaning that it started out poor and now it's average, or meaning that it started out average and now it's getting okay?
Well, when you called about, I think near your ground level, I talked to you, and a lot of people say it, but you put the time and the effort and resources into your product, which really, and you're getting great guests, and you seem to take it really seriously, which is great.
Yeah, no, it's I appreciate that. I was just giving you a hard time. It's actually been going really well. I mean, you never know what these things do when you start, right? And or where it's going to go, but definitely getting some traction and a following, and it's growing. And the guests obviously are a massive part of that. The network really helps. So have someone like David Quinn on the show is like, how does Ken Holland? I mean, how does that not help get the word out there? But no, but I want to chat with you. We were talking about COVID. Like maybe we should discontinue that because that is present right now. You're out there in Newfoundland, back in your home stomping grounds, and you guys have been pretty lucky there, right?
Yeah, we really have been. I think we have the island advantage. Some people would say disadvantage. If we treated it poorly at first, it would be a disadvantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we really didn't. There was one, I don't want to say minor, I don't want to treat the disease ignorantly at all, but we had a breakout at a funeral home like last spring. And that was really the worst of it. I think we had 40 cases come from that. Largely, without getting into the ins and outs of it, we're an island, so you just if you take control of it, and then we don't, we take the right precautions at the airport and at the boat. There's no other way people are getting in, right?
Yeah.
So we've had some cases where people might work in Alberta, for example. We have a working relationship with Alberta in many ways, as you know. A lot of people come back and forth, so we might have had a case, but they're quarantining kind of on the outskirts. We really, knock on wood here and cross our fingers as we go into the final parts of this. Newfoundland is definitely one of the most fortunate places in the world. And I want to reiterate that because, a lot of doing this podcast, and, I got a book out, a new book called Fights, Film, and Folklore. And in order to promote that, I go to my social media networks, avenues, and I post a lot of things. And some people think I'm being real ignorant, or when you put yourself out there. So I'll get messages, well, you don't respect my grandparents. And I'm going, look, it's different everywhere, right? And I want to treat this with kitty gloves, but I'm skating 5 times a week, and we're going out to eat here and there. We're still half capacity. We do have precautions, but it didn't, it's not Georgia, it's not Ottawa at times, or Toronto, or it's harder to control when you're somewhere that's easily accessible and you got so many people. So knock on wood, we've been fortunate. My life has been fairly normal. At the worst of times, we were on total lockdown way back in the spring, and I got to spend some good time with my daughters. So now there's a push and a pull. Obviously, the economy could be a little bit better, and my wallet could be a little bit better, but I'm getting by. I'm certainly not complaining. People are dying out there, Podes. People are losing their houses, everything else. I'm all right. I can't complain.
Yeah, no, it's such a strange beast. It really is, right? Because there's the respect factor, obviously, the people who are getting sick, and those are who can be in trouble. And then there's the other side of it where it seems like, it doesn't touch, let's say, like my kids, for instance, right? Like kids are kind of immune to it. And then you're dealing, my life is really around hockey now, whether it's minor or whether it's, doing something like this. And we're in a scenario where we are grateful because we can still practice, like where the government has allowed us to practice, but there's no scrimmage or there's no games. And again, this is not like, oh, poor us, not at all. A lot of people are shut down, can't play at all. But it's just, you start questioning it. You know me, I'm a curious guy too, and you dig into stuff, and it's like, why is there such a restriction around hockey, right? With these kids playing, or parents that can't go into a building that could hold 10,000 people and they can't socially distance in there, so they have to sit in the parking lot. It just seems like there's quite a bit of hypocrisy around
no one knows.
what the
It's
regs
all a
mean, right?
contradiction. Like
Yeah.
you want to respect it. I'm not ignorant to it. I'm not trying to be, but we all, the whole world, like this was ground level stuff. We didn't know what was happening, and even the experts, you want to err on the side of caution, obviously, but then how long? I'm just glad there's a vaccine because you could break it down all you want, but hypocrisy, contradictions, and sometimes it's not really intended. People are just trying to do their best. I'll give you an example. I don't know if this is happening, but remember when they were saying the OHL was going to go with no hitting?
Yeah.
So now think of the consequences of that. If you're playing with no hitting, and I'm not sure where that is now. I know it was going to be a thing, but I just don't see how that could happen. For example, are we saying that hitting causes COVID? To me, you're grinding in the corner. If I can't hit you, I'm probably going to get closer to you. If the puck goes in the corner. And then not only that, if you're an OHL team and there's no hitting for you, it's going to, you still want to win the championship. So guys, I don't know. I'm trying to think for you and I. Let's say a guy in the Western League like Dave Scatchard, let's say a good two-way player. He wasn't a goon, but he could fight. The physical side kind of helped him. Let's say there's no hitting. Now, there's going to be guys. So if you're an OHL owner and that was the scenario, or a GM or a coach or whatever you might be, you're going to pick the team that you want to win. So now all of a sudden, if it's only Shinny, whoa. We got to put 6 of these guys are really going to help us for next year when we go for the OHL, or we go for the championship. But this year, they're not really going to help us. So let's totally have a different dynamic to our team if you want to win. I just think that would be the worst possible thing if we start adjusting for this 1 year in the way we approach sports and the way it's played and the way it's scouted. And, it's a big curveball because some leagues are going, some aren't. Some teams within those leagues are going, some aren't. The Newfoundland Growlers, I watched some great hockey players. They're in the East Coast League. They're not only in Canada, they're in Newfoundland. There's no way they're going to play. Yet there's teams in the States that are playing. So some of these prospects are getting noticed. Other ones don't have a place to play. Some people have a breakout year. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I know. Well, then the NHL's playing. Like
Mm.
I know there's a small faction that like are complaining about that. I mean, but from a consistency standpoint, I get it. Like why can the pros play yet my 8-year-old can't? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. Really, it doesn't. They're traveling. They're doing all these things. If it's a pandemic, it's a pandemic. I mean, it should be all for one and one for all. But anyways, neither here nor there. We're going to get through this. It's going to be, we're getting this vaccine out. We're not going to have these conversations anymore, hopefully, right? And we'll just move on and get regular. But yeah, I couldn't imagine. Can you imagine being a prospect right now? Like this is your draft year and you're sitting on the sidelines? Like, my God.
Not only that, I'm an example. I said to people, I mean, a 16-year-old in the Western League, I had a good year. I won't say a grad, 33 points. I know I came in as a big prospect. I don't really remember, but going into my draft year, we were doing IMG stuff. I'm not saying I was a slouch. I was probably rated in the 3rd round. I don't really remember. But I know that my draft year really helped me. Like I came out of nowhere. I was our most improved player, the Western League most improved. I caught fire. Well, there's going to be some kid in his draft year now that doesn't have a chance to do that. I was just waiting to come out, and there was other players that might, you're 16, you go in there and, points aren't really a measure of success. It's getting used to the league and the next year, or when you're 18, one of those years, you usually break out. Where there's kids going to break out or that aren't going to break out that you wouldn't have known. It's going to be hard for the kids. It's going to be real hard, I think, for scouts because these years are the ones that people, they're people, the improvement, the development rate is chaotic from
Well, I mean,
16 to 21.
I just had Tyler Wright on, right? He's director of amateur scouting for the Oilers. So we were just talking about him, and I mean, it's such an imperfect science to begin with, as you know, right? You get two draft picks out of a round to play NHL games of any significance, and you've done an amazing job, right? Like, I mean, it's hard to get right at 18.
I think it's one of the most underrated stats that people don't realize is how many of the scope that get drafted and then how many get signed, how many play.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, right? First of all, it's hard for these scouts to get it right. And now, I mean, we had that discussion, like, can you imagine how many guys like from this draft coming up? I mean, however it happens, like how many more mistakes there's going to be, or even how many guys are going to get drafted in year 2 when usually there's very few guys get drafted in their second year of eligibility. right? Like
Yeah.
guys are just not going to get drafted, and they're going to be 19-year-olds now getting drafted. So the draft following this one's going to be really
Yeah, I
interesting
think
too.
you're going to see it in a year or two. You're really going to see, you're going to see some players that will be like, wow, I didn't realize they had this in them. But like some guy just got drafted when he's 17 or 18, and even if it was just the physical changes in your body, some people go, boom, oh, put on 3 inches, wow. But there's really no way to quantify it if you're just playing shinny at home.
Right.
And the same thing for the female. Around here, the female hockey, we got a girl, Maggie Connors, playing at Princeton from Newfoundland, and that ball was really rolling. I could see it because more and more women play all the time. I'm involved heavily in ball hockey, and it's shooting through the roof in registration and development. But for the girls too, and we have the NHL, to watch and at least to pay attention to, and there's some form of news daily. I mean, if I think female hockey really took a hit here because the ball was starting to roll there too. I mean, who didn't really? I'm just trying to at least get an idea of the scope of all of this.
Yeah. These kids now like can play. Like a kid like my oldest, he's 11. He's on the top Peewee team in Vernon here, and they've been practicing, like I said, but they can't scrimmage. And even for him, like he's coming home now and saying, "Oh, I wish we could play." Like they're doing all the small area stuff, and we're doing skill development. But at the end of the day, these guys want to play. And then you got these 18-year-old, excuse me, and that I've been working with guys one-on-one in different capacities, and these guys that are like trying to get places right now, like it's a mental grind, right? And like I'm trying to get them to position it as a massive advantage because it and I know it. There's tons of guys out there that are sitting on a couch and feeling sorry for themselves because they can't play. Like if you can take this 6-7 months or whatever this is now for these guys, like and actually take strides forward in the development without being, in a competitive arena, which you can do. It's hard to do, but you can do it. Like you're gonna set yourself up when this thing comes out on the other side real nice.
And there's also the other side of it. There's players. Just think about all the players that we played with, and your prospects, and you're working hard. But some guys need that extra little push. Some guys need, and if they go a year at home, and survival of the fittest. I'm not saying I feel bad for them, but you're going to see that change as well. I think you're going to see a lot. I mean, you already did when it first happened. Didn't Joe Ward retire? Some NHLers, but that trickles down in these East Coast leagues and Central leagues, and all over the world. There's legends and veterans in these communities and leagues all over the world. I play in the minors. You don't hear much about it, but I mean, go to Boise, Idaho, for example. Sold out most nights. It's a heartbeat of their city. There's players there. When I played, it was Jeremy Milmock, Cal Ingraham, had been there for 10 years, part of the community, and that's going to change. But that's the nature of the beast. I'm just trying to point out the scope of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you put that P word, right? Passion. I mean, I think and commitment, right? Those two things right now for these younger guys is like, you're going to get tested. Like, I mean, what are you made of? I mean, like how bad do you want this? Right. And I think, like you said, some of the guys are going to fall back. Some guys are going to step forward. And, the guys that are going to take it a little bit more professional at a younger age, like they're forced into it right now. I mean, they are going to come out shining.
Or I was one of those guys. Like I did it. I worked hard. I can always, but like I needed to put, like I used to call Mike Barnett, my agent at the time with IMG, and those Brainerd, like I used to like going there because I knew if I was at home, like I'd work out, but it wouldn't be the same. So IMG until I was drafted, and then after I was drafted, it was in my contract. Montreal would give me, I forget, a few of us had it, $5 or $10 grand to pick wherever we wanted to work out. So Brad Brown and I went to Sweden one year for work on our skating. I went to Brock University, Brainerd, all over, and I knew, because I could fly there and train with pros, and I just knew that would take care of me, and we could have a good time, go out for beers on the weekend, and I could still get all the training done. But it's hard when it's harder for everybody when they're home and everything's easy, especially when the world is shut off. Maybe I'll, okay, for 3 weeks left in the month, I'll cheat for the month, and then I'll get into it. And then it's just easy to kick the can down the street. And so I used to love immersing myself with other pros. I'd be home for a little bit, but I'd be like, okay, boys, I'm gone.
It must have been hard for you, though. And it must have been hard for you. I'm assuming just because I know that Newfoundland culture and I know how big hockey is there as well. So to be a homegrown, essentially, prodigy coming home, and you're the talk of the town and the toast of the town, and to keep your eyes on that prize, right?
Yeah,
Without,
right.
yeah, it would be hard. I can
With George
imagine.
Street right there,
Yeah,
with George Street right there, which is it's a fun place. But it's a fun place. So I only have great memories down there. George Street, for those that don't know, it's, I guess you could say, one of the party capitals of Canada. But real party is one way to put it, but it's just a vibe. It's, even if I'm not having beers, I'll go down to Greensleeves for a bite to eat, see Lex and Steph. Hey, what's going on? Maybe see the live band. George Street's the heart and soul of at least the entertainment / food industry of drink industry of Newfoundland or St. John's. And and I would love that. And I would love to train hard, but it's just, and everybody wanted to please me, or the same thing for Alex Newhook, Dawson Mercer now, World Juniors. Congrats on their silver. Get that plug in. And the boys went in the first round last year and the year before. They're from Newfoundland. Same thing. Alex, I talk to him more than Dawson, but he loves coming home. I skate with him, but he's home for 3 weeks. It's just the way they love. They love you here. You go to the mall as a professional. You don't even have to be NHL. If you're Zach O'Brien's a good example. Doesn't have any NHL games. Got a Calder Cup in the AHL. MVP of the playoffs for the Growlers. Newfoundland, he's over playing in Germany. If Zach walks through the mall, he has to sign autographs. Right? It's just comes with being in a smaller place.
Yeah, I love that though. It's such a great vibe there. Newfoundland, you know how much I like my time there. It was great. But let's get back to you. So, you talked about that draft year where you did, big coming out party, 50 goals, ended up climbing up the rankings, ended up being 8th overall. But let's even rewind a little farther than that because, I said child prodigy earlier, and you essentially were, right? You were somebody that tore up minor hockey from Newfoundland. That was, like I said, at the time there was only a few guys that had come out of there before, and so you were kind of like this big shiny coin, and you had to leave early. Not didn't have to, I guess, but decided to, which was sounds like it was seniors' sort of idea there to say, let's maybe take a look at this out west. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of that scenario? You as a minor hockey league player, and then coming out west to play with Quesnel at 14 years old.
Sure. Well, yeah, my minor hockey, and I'm not bragging when I say you're right. I was a prodigy. When I was my dad coached the local junior team, junior B team, but they were the best in Atlantic Canada. They went undefeated. And as you can think, Dad came back from pro and they had some good players. And not everybody was leaving. No one was leaving, really. In the 80s, it was no different. We still had good players. In the 90s, we had, 100 players play major, junior, and pro. Not NHL, I'm saying somewhere, because the door opened and there's leagues everywhere. So guys that you probably wouldn't have heard of, like Chris Peach or Derek Clancy, or Jeff Loader, these guys left, and but that wasn't a thing in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So the junior B league here was fantastic. The senior league here was fantastic. Mario Roberge played in Port Basque in 91, 92, 92, 93, won the Stanley Cup with Montreal. Bill McDougall played in Port Basque in 91, 92, 92, 93. He led the American Hockey League playoffs with 52 points in 16 games. 52 points in 16 games. A year before, he's playing for Port Basque in the Newfoundland League. Right? So that's what I mean. We had this great hockey, junior seat, like it was crazy. So, John Slaney before he left, Harold Druken, they played junior here. So,
but was that foresight then, like to say, okay, so there was great hockey there. So it wasn't like you had to leave to get great hockey, but it seems like maybe you thought you had to leave to be a someone.
Yeah, I think we were. We had a little bit of a defeatist attitude. First of all, I've often said, like I played national competitions. I'm fortunate enough to either be on Team Newfoundland or win to go from Newfoundland in ball hockey, ice hockey, soccer, and baseball. And in each sport, maybe not ball hockey actually, but in the other three, because we could win, but you'd usually play the host first game, so they'll pace you 10-1. Everybody gets a free hot dog, and the host is happy in Newfoundland. Oh, shucks, they love trying, like they'll give you a good game. They're not going to give up. That's usually what it was. So, and we hadn't really nothing to go by. My dad played in the 70s. Tony White had 27 goals in the 70s for Washington. There was an influx in the 70s because Howie Meeker basically and Joe Byrne came here to run minor hockey. That's a long story, but that's part of it. It's a big part of it. The 80s, not much. It was not like it wasn't talented here. So I really wasn't thinking that I would make the NHL, to be honest. I wasn't even I started 12 turning 13 is when first it hit. Like we won the provincials here 16-0. I had 8. It was getting to the point that it was really bad for my development. So I knew I had to do something. I thought it was going to be played junior here. And I still didn't think the development was to be the NHL. I was like, hopefully I'll get a scholarship. My dad was always in my head. He's like, it's real hard. I'm telling you, I went through it. It's real hard. Everything got to go right. You can be talented. You got to have the right billets. You got to not get hurt. You got to not be in love and want to go home. There's all homesickness for lots of reasons. He's like, I'm telling you, it's survival of the fittest. If you can get a college scholarship, and I know you can. So at 12, 13, that was what I was thinking. Not that he didn't have confidence, but come on. If you're telling your kid at 12 they're going to play in the NHL, there's something wrong. There's lots of obstacles. So I went to the Quebec Peewee tournament. That's what happened. And I played, and all of a sudden I realized, because it's the biggest minor hockey tournament, there was 150 teams. We were in the international B division. Mount Pearl had gone every year, never really win a game. And the way it works, it took place at the Colisée where the Quebec Nordiques played. So if you win, you get to keep playing in the Colisée. If you lose, you go in the consolation. There's a rink in the mall there. There's rinks all over, and it's a bit of fun. But if you win, you keep playing. So we won, and then we won again. And then we played Switzerland, and we won. And it was largely, I was almost a foot taller. That was almost my size now. I had a growth spurt. I was one of the best. I won the best Peewee in Atlantic Canada as a first year. Okay. Right. Then I put on about 5 inches. Okay. And I have a second year coming. And everybody knew it. They tried to put me up to Bantam. Hockey Canada wouldn't let it happen. So I played Peewee, and we went undefeated. And we went to Quebec, and I was ripping it up. And there was a big article, second day there, third day there. Open the paper, it says Terry Ryan à retenir, a name to remember. And it was I got it in there somewhere. Maybe I'll break it up. I got it in there. And anyway, and then I realized it. And the year before we had gone, when I was in first year, and it was Jeff O'Neill was that guy playing for Richmond Hill. It was a big thing, Jeff O'Neill. And I remember going, the boys were like, geez, you're Jeff O'Neill this year. I remember it. Jeremy Charles looked at me. You're Jeff O'Neill this year. I went, wow, I am. And there was a guy came down, and I mean, I was scoring at will. A guy came down with a card to play in the Vancouver Super Series. And he wanted me to play with his team. It was either Vancouver or Team BC. It was one of those. And I took it home to Dad, and I said, I want to go. I want to go play. These guys are the best in Western Canada. If I could be that at the Quebec Peewee tournament, then maybe I could do something. And Dad said, I know you can do something, but what we're going to do is take a team Newfoundland. We're going to take our own team, because he said, he goes, if you're this good, you don't think Danny Cleary, you don't think Dave Penny, you don't think Kurt Walsh, Brian Bursey, if you're that good, then they're at least this good. Because there was good players here.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah. And he said, the 76s are a little bit better than the 77s. I was born in 77. So he said, you'll move up a year, and we'll take Team Geo to the Vancouver Super Series. You're not going to go on your own. I said, okay, let's do this. So we went out. As you know, we went out to play in the Super Series in 91, 92, I guess it was. And I ended up getting the most promising player because I was a year young. I think I finished 4th in scoring, but I was a year younger than everybody. Aginla and them were playing, but they were in the lower division. So that's when Tri-City came down. Ron Toigo, Chico Resch were there. And one game they came down, but by the 4th game, and I was hanging in there. And then at the end, to be honest with you, Podes, we hung in there with every team. Like I said, my host, sure enough, we go out there, we're playing Vancouver at the Sun God Arena, and we're Newfoundland. And I'm sure exactly what they thought. It was a summer tournament. Joe Sakic dropped the puck, and there's a lot of people. You played in that tournament. It was like 2,000 or 3,000 people there to see the first game, and whatever it fit, and we tied them 6-6, and people were blown away. We were blown away. And all the possibilities in all of our heads started going, holy shit, we're as good as these guys are, which we had a bit of a lucky game. But we didn't win, but we tied 3 games. We lost 2, 6-5. And the only game we got blown out was the final game against Manitoba. And it was the first night I remember in my life because we were in Vancouver. We were all first year. I was first year Bantam. They were second or going into. And we put on Vaseline and pepper on our faces, and we got into a bar. It looked like stubble, right? Put the hat down like this. And we went out like, and we were from all over Newfoundland, so we were used to being enemies, right? It was none of this social media or like,
Yeah.
love your teammate or or sorry, your opponent. So it was great to get to know all the best players in Newfoundland. And then against Manitoba, we went out and we put it up. We lost 10-0, but first shift, Mike Leclerc, I'll never forget it, and Vern Beardy. You remember those guys they played against us?
Yeah.
They were out, and Leclerc cross-checked me. I went right back at him, and then I ended up fighting Vern Beardy fighting first year battle. But the Western League at the time, they loved it. Chico Rich came down and Ron, and they said, "This is what we're going to do, and you want to come out at 14. You got to live out here to be drafted." And the draft in the Western Leagues when you're 14, as you know, we're both high picks in that. And I ended up going third in that. Redden went first. But anyway, that's kind of going further. I had to go find a place. So they put me in Quesnel to hide me because they were picking like number 16 for some reason. And then I ended up like making the junior team in Quesnel and lead my team in scoring. So then the word got out there. There was a story on TSN, and then they traded up to get number 3. Traded Dean Tilchin, a 50-goal scorer. Not that there was any pressure on me coming in. They all knew, oh, geez, this is who we gave a 50-goal scorer with 2 years left in junior. So anyway, that's how it all went down. And the best part of that story is that Kurt Walsh went right to the OHL, ended up being a third-round pick for Buffalo. Dave Penny went and played Junior A in Prince George. Mike Pittman played in Guelph on Jeff O'Neill's line. Played 4 years in Guelph, still works there, married a girl. About 7 or 8 of us ended up playing, and virtually everybody went somewhere because the rest of them went to the Maritime Junior League.
From the Super Series team you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was nothing. It was just a guy giving me a card in Quebec. And that's why, and from there, Podes, from there, it really took off. 4 years before, in 1991, we had a guy, John Slaney. It was rare. It was lightning in a bottle, but he left. You see, not a lot of scouts would come here. Is the reason? Is a big reason.
No, the Maple Leafs wouldn't come there and watch us with the baby Leafs. I mean, scouts weren't coming to Newfoundland.
With you guys already here. So I should say we had a defeatist attitude, but it was more because of that. There was no scouts coming here to get us away. And we, if we went, we'd try our hardest. That may be too easy of a term, defeatist, but we always felt like we were the real big underdog, which sometimes is a good thing. But I'm just saying, as a rule, none of us grew up going, we're actually going to play in the NHL. And then like 10 years later, like 6 of us did. But I think that got the ball rolling. Slaney was lightning in a bottle, but still no one was. 4 years later, 95, I go. And the next year, Harold Druken goes 30th. The next year, Cleary goes 13th. And then, of course, Ryan Clough, Michael Ryder, Adam Party, Luke Adam. Now, all of a sudden, people started coming here to watch us. Our AAA program got great. The Quebec League has basically got a player that got scouts every team that live here at this point. So no one's going unnoticed. But that's a guy like Michael Ryder, when I came up, you would never know. He's from Bonavista. He could have scored 300 goals in half a season, and we wouldn't have gone anywhere. No one would have known it.
Right. You kind of brushed over the fact when you were in Quesnel there. So like So the Americans bring you out kind of on this secret CIA type mission, and they think that you're going to play midget that year in Quesnel or Bantam.
I think Bantam. I wasn't really thinking about it. I was thinking it's BC. They got Bantam AAA here. We don't have it. So I went out thinking I was playing Bantam.
Right. Now, and then you tried out for that junior B team.
Yeah, but because I had to start school. So I'm going to play Bantam in my head. At the most midget. I knew they had a midget team. Maybe I'll play that, but I really don't know. Again, Poets, I played Peewee here with no hitting. Right. So to me, midget AAA in BC sounds like a stretch, let alone junior. But once I get there, I'm in Quesnel. You know how it works. A lot of the local guys are playing, and I go to the Bantam. And
you were big too, right? Which was another, which was an advantage, of course.
I was big. I was big. So when I was playing Bantam, actually, I remember being a little bit too aggressive because I was big, and even as a first-year Bantam, so because I did go to Bantam practice in Quesnel and see how I'd fare out. But I remember seeing guys, and it's still a small town. It's good in BC, but Quesnel is as big as Mount Pearl, where I'm from. So, but in my head, it's BC. They're all going to be great. But I found I'd look at the smaller players, and I'd ran boom, earth. And I'm not a great hitter, but I was because I was bigger than some of these guys, and I was just better on my feet. So it was almost bad for that reason. When I played junior, I went out. What I did, I put on. I loved the visor, and they let me play with no visor in exhibition. And I just went out with the junior team, and then I went out again, and I started scoring. And then they put me with two of the toughest guys, and one could really put the puck in the net. So I wasn't getting touched, and I'm going, and I wasn't looking to hit anybody now because I'm kind of nervous. I'm actually a little bit scared when I'm out there, but I'm scoring. So I guess they just, and Tri-City loved the idea. And then they not only had me there, they said, you know what, this is going to be all right. We'll make it a loose affiliate. So Sheldon Surrey came. They needed him to improve his skating. Sheldon had a cannon from day one, but he was a work in progress. And there was a couple other guys, Bud Howell and Andrew Laming, and there was a couple other ones that came up. I don't think much amounted, but they always had somewhat of an affiliation. Carey Price ended up playing in Quesnel a few years later. But that's what happens. And Quesnel, if they didn't take me in, though, that was a really touchy situation at the time. And with it was a lot more loosey-goosey, and you're a lot more on your own. I'm glad I had my dad, but, with that, booze, drugs, women, off-ice stuff. I'm 14 playing in not only junior A, it wasn't like going to Surrey, where half the team are prospects that are going to go NCAA. This was a beer drinking town. I love them, but this was Quesnel, BC. Go up there. Most of us are mill workers. Piss us off. We're going to fight you. Go to the bar, and there's going to be a John Denver song on at some point, and everybody's going to throw down. You're yeah, it's tough. So I loved it, but there was no one looking out for me. So Chris Spencer and Dave Standing, two guys who were rough around the edges, but Dave actually got caught going over the kayak, going over the border in a kayak lined with drugs when he was 15. So he was a prospect with Tri-City. He got sent there. There was people that had seen and known. And when I say that, I mean that with love, because he saw a little bit of him in me. He was a huge prospect. And a guy, Chris Spencer, who could really throw, couldn't skate that well, but was an all-star. And, just was our fighter. So, and they could have easily said, you're not from here. You know where you're going. We don't. We're trying to get a scholarship, right? You're going to Tri-City. You're wasting a spot for some. But they didn't. They did for about a month. But once I fought and once I stayed, and even in school, I had zits on my face. I spoke. If you think I have an accent now, Codes, you lived here. I spoke like a taxi driver from Monday Pond. That's the way I spoke. So, they was laughing at me. I had zits. I'd never been laid before. And I took care of all that in the first month. But that's why once I fought a couple times, they all were behind me, and I could do no wrong. And I spent 2 years there, and I absolutely loved it. And by the time, I know I'm talking about, but that I always say was a huge advantage. And Quesnel has as much to do with my family. I'm telling you, they accepted me. And when you get confidence, I ended up leading the team and scoring 2 years as a bantam. I have great memories. But when I went to Tri-City, all of a sudden, I'm 16. BJ Young was a great player. BJ played bantam the year before. All these guys coming in played bantam at the most midget. I played junior for 2 years against Grant Job, Lenny Forshner, Reno Buttazzoni, guys that wanted to kill me. And so it wasn't as much of an adjustment for me to go into Seattle and play against Brendan Witt. It was hard. It wasn't great, but I was the other guys were like, oh my God, what is this? I remember saying to BJ, well, I feel a little bit at ease because at least these games are on tape. So if Brendan Witt does something to me, he'll get arrested. Because in Fort St. John, that wasn't the case. In Fort St. John, they were trying to turn over our bus. I remember going something criminal might happen here. Not that it did, but I remember thinking, well, at least these games are on tape. So, going into Spokane in the Boone Street Burn was, I'm sure, must have been riveting and almost scary for a 16-year-old coming in that had never seen that. For me, it was a bit of fun, right?
Yeah.
So you more time.
That rivalry was. I had Tom Cowell on back. Geez, I don't know what episode he was.
Yeah, I listened to that.
20-year NHL referee, and he was talking about that was if you got that assignment as a ref, Spokane versus Tri-Cities in WHL, you were on the up and up because that was the hardest game in the league to ref, and everyone wanted it on their calendar. So
you know what's funny? At the time, I distinctly remember this in the room. I remember where I was sitting. I remember Mark Hurley here. I remember Damon over here. And I said to them, we were going out to play our fucking 20th game of the season again. And I'm going, imagine what we got in store for us. I said, if this is a rivalry, Like, I can't wait to see what it's going to be like in pro. And it remains the best. I didn't realize that at the time. It remains, whatever league I've ever played in, what it remains the biggest rivalry is those games against Tri-Cities. I thought there was so much more, but no, that was the biggest two
Yeah.
cities that had a rivalry that I've ever had.
You
It
don't
was
know what
awesome.
you don't know, right?
It's
That's
not only
hilarious.
that, it was a rivalry, but each time you guys would win like by scoring with like 3 seconds left, or we'd win in overtime. It wasn't like it was ever like, oh, 4 games of nothing. Even in the regular season, it was swinging back. No one
Yeah.
had, we seemed to have these really even teams that were, you were splitting hairs saying if one was better than the other, and it always worked out like that.
I remember my 16-year-old year. See, obviously you weren't there yet, but I had just come out of Sherwood Park playing with the Flyers. With
Yeah,
it was one of the best Bantam teams ever
ever,
assembled.
ever.
To be
I'm
honest,
well aware of all that. Yeah,
yeah, and so Lanks and I were line mates essentially the entire year. I was center, Dubinsky was on the right side, and Lanks was the left winger. Right, so we played together all year. I mean, spent hours together away from the rink. And so he's playing in Tri-Cities. I'm playing in Spokane. It was the first game of the regular season. It was my, I mean, I played as a 15-year-old, right? Like as the season before. So it wasn't my first ever game as a WHL player, but it was my first game that season, right? As a 16-year-old.
You're like me. I played 3 games at 15. I don't know what.
Right. And yeah, so there's a line brawl, of course, right? Spokane, Seattle. I mean, Spokane, Tri-Cities. There's a line brawl. Game 1, we're in Tri-Cities, and Lanks is on the ice, right? So I grab Lanks. And you know me, I would fight too, but like I wasn't going to fight Lanks. And I thought, okay, so Lanks and I got each other, and Lanks like gives me like the old possum, right? Like, oh yeah, and then he like pushes me off to go jump this 20-year-old defenseman of mine, right? So now he's getting suckered in the back. I got to jump on Lanks. Like everyone's pissed off. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of the guys are pissed off at me because I lost my guy anyways, that was like a big eye opener too. It's like, thanks, you prick.
You're learning
how you do that again.
That's on the spot training, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like for each one of those, and a lot of it happens in the WHL for the first time. Like there was a whole lot of firsts for me in that league. I remember 99% with absolutely total affection, but just something like that. Like, how do you handle yourself? And it's there's a different ring to it when you start playing these TV games too. I remember just going, wow, I didn't even know this Northeast. I don't know what it was, this television network, until like my second year. I'm like, wow, when we go to Seattle, all the games are on TV. I remember watching it, just loving it. And the crowds that we would get, no offense against the East at the time, but I remember going over for the first time to play in Prince Albert and Swift Current and everything, going, wow, like, and they're great towns. I mean, I played in Red Dirt and I loved it. I'm just saying, and Red Dirt gets good crowds, but it was just at the particular time, especially where you and I played for American teams. We had a big American division, man. We had Portland, Seattle, Tacoma, Tri-City, and Spokane. Mm-hmm. And in our little division, though, like 3 of those rinks, so I often played in front of 15,000 people. Like, but by the time I was 17, and people laugh. But now I'm glad that YouTube, I can show this shit, because I'm like, I told you, this is Portland. This is where the Trailblazers played. We come in and play on Friday, and they play Saturday. And I'm like, and you guys moved on to a rink with 10,000 people, and more often than not, it was sold out when we played you, right? And then you go over, or the other leagues. I did some scouting here and there for different people over the years, and you go to games in Atlantic Canada, and it's great. I mean, I'm not talking about the talent. I'm not saying that these cities aren't great, or it's great to vibes to watch games in Rwanda or wherever. I'm just saying at the time there was an NHL feel playing in Seattle. I don't care what you say. And not everybody in the CHL got that experience. 18,000 people. And you can look at it, look back at highlights, and you're like, wow, that was junior, right?
Well, you already mentioned the Boone Street Barn there in Spoke, which was just an epic arena for WHL play. It was awesome the way it was set up, and just for everyone listening, like it used to be a place where they'd have the ballet would come in, like these road shows would come in, and like the tag on the bottom of the t-shirts for Spokane was, "It ain't the ballet," and my goodness, was it not the ballet? And we'd have to walk through the crowd to get to our dressing room, because the dressing room was on the second floor, and there'd be people lined up, and I mean, it was just such a crazy experience, super awesome. And then we had that new rink, which, like you said, had, I think 10-5 it held, and that was a year that we were the #1 ranked team in the CHL, and my gosh, people were and then that was before internet, obviously. Like you had to call in or be there to get your tickets. And there's people that would camp out like outside the arena, and it was sold out in minutes. And it was just like a crazy vibe that year. It was so awesome. Like you said, I mean, it's so close to like an NHL feel and vibe, and you're 18, 19 years old. It's pretty crazy.
You know what's funny, Podes? I am in 95, 96. So I went with Montreal. They kept me for their entire camp, and they put me in a couple of late exhibition games to get some experience. You know, where the first ones are in like Halifax somewhere, but the last ones are in the Forum, and we played the Bruins, and then we played at Maple Leaf Gardens against the Leafs. So they let me play those 2 games to get some experience. And I knew I was going back. So Jacques Demers said, you're going to miss the first 2 games in Tri-Cities. Your first game is going to be in Spokane. But I didn't know you guys had a new rink. So I flew in, I got in late, and you're exactly right. I remember going, geez, there was people outside. There was like large, and as I went in, there was people scalping tickets. I'm like, where am I? I had no idea you guys had a new rink. I went in to skate around, and it was the most pleasant surprise that I remember for that year. It was wild. What a rink. And you guys seemed to catch fire. What a time to catch fire. And you know, that, and you were not only rated #1, didn't they host it like a year or 2 later?
And won it when they hosted it.
And they won it when they hosted it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
that was
that was cool. You in junior, so junior B, so you're a big guy. You ended up like you said, you ended up learning how to fight kind of on your feet. Yeah, in junior A. Oh yeah, sorry, junior A. Right now it's junior B. So I just I get crossed up with that. But were you like, did you know that was in you? Like, were you a fighter off the ice, like growing up, or was that just something that you did on the ice strictly?
Okay, yes, but the thing is, not in the sense that you would think. Much, if you watch my fights playing pro, it's usually in a like Chris Lyden says, I'm a defender, you're a defender. I was more of that. I didn't really like going out and starting them. I don't really remember when I did, unless it carried over from the game before. There's a few things. Growing up, I'm an only child, first of all, and I skipped a grade. So everybody in my grade was your age, and I'm a year younger. So, but again, I was normally, it wasn't like I was smaller or anything. But as I started to come on and I went to a school. There's 3 or 4 schools in Mount Pearl elementary schools. Well, the particular one, up to grade 9, junior high. The particular one I went to was rough around the edges, would probably be the way to put it at the time. And all my buddies, so on the Mount Pearl Blades, which was our hockey team, I was the only one in Mary Queen of the World where I went. Again, great memories. I'm just telling you the way it was. I hate to put them down, but this was the case. If there was fights going down, it was at Mary Queen of the World. I was the only player in whereas St. Peter's, everybody else on my team, or Morris Academy, junior high, sorry, everybody else went there. I was the only player and there's 2 classes of grade 9, say, when I was in grade 9, grade 8, whatever. We're right all the way up. But particularly then I started getting fights before I left. So, but people it was all bullies. And I just all of a sudden got some confidence when I got bigger, and I got a few off the ice, and then I almost started going down a list of bullies. People would, I mean the kind that, hey, I'm going to fight you after school, and show up, and I'm not exaggerating at all. Show up and 100 people, kids sticking around, Frank Chalk showing up, coins in his hand, like those kind of things. Again, I was really happy-go-lucky. I might have bent the rules a little bit. I went on a few bottle drives for my team that weren't real. We were just saving the money for something else. But I really wasn't violent at all. Just like now when I drink or something, I'm not violent. It doesn't come into my head. But I got my backup for bullies. And I don't know if it was because I was bullied so much. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people in my grade, saying grade 9 American, a lot of them had failed. I skipped a grade. I'm their size, and I'm the pretty boy that wears his chip and pepper. I wear the Varney shirts. I'm scoring. I'm in the paper, right? Or we're going to play volleyball. I'll never play before. I'll play. Oh, he's our best player. Fuck him. It was that thing. And a lot of people just, knew a lot of people at the time. It wasn't monitored as much. And a lot of big bully types wanted to fight. And then it spilled over. Oh, it's like,
sure.
How do I say it? I remember being at our all Newfoundland in Peewee, okay, and provincial championships. The rink was sold out to see me play. Yeah, obviously to see everybody play, but I'm telling you, it was unique. At the time, they're all there to see me fail, hopefully. So I get a penalty shot early in the game, and the entire, well, I'm sure some people weren't, but it was like, the Rocky movies, Rocky, right? It was asshole, every asshole. I mean, you could hear it outside. That's the kind of thing that was happening. So I had my buddies in Mount Pearl, and we won everything. We won baseball, we won soccer, we won hockey. They hated us. And I remember taking that shot, and I was so mad, I was crying, almost at a rage though. And then I took the face off, and I went bar down. I missed the shot, went bar down, and then went over and did this one. And then I become public enemy number one, right? I had to get it. I was as bad. But yeah, did I? So when I went out there, I didn't think it had happened on the ice. I was terrified to play junior, to be honest, Podes. And I went out there in my first fight, a guy kind of jumped me and he beat me real good. And then I just realized, and I came back at him. It's a long story. I'm sure you've heard it on Spittin' Chickens or whatever. I put hot sauce on my hands. I shaved up my helmet. So when he hit me, because I knew he was going to hit me more than I was going to hit him, it chafed up his hands and they bled. And I did what I could, man. And I beat him. And then I realized shortly, that first year in Quesnel, I think I had 222 penalty minutes, right? So I fought, I played, but I just realized after a while that I just didn't have a fear of it. And
didn't you even to put it on the other side? Like I heard you talk before, and maybe even it was just us in a discussion offline where you made a point of actually going. You said you didn't instigate, but you did. I thought tell me that you made a point of like going out and taking on a Brandon Witt like first shift, just to say.
Well, first of all, I really did fear getting hit going through the middle. That I had 4 concussion syndrome, post-concussion syndrome. They all came with that kind of thing happening. So I didn't like it at all. Like I remember it happening a couple of times. I'd way rather take a punch. So I would often go after a guy like that. So he'd be a little bit hesitant, not saying he wouldn't do it, but a little bit hesitant on lighting me up coming through the middle. And I found it got me a little bit of room. So in the Western League, it's mathematics. Brian McCabe on your team, I mean, he wasn't easy to play against. He was talented, but I mean, he was corkscrew with his cross-check in front, then slash right on the foot. He was good at getting guys clearing the front of the net, but I found if you just played a little bit tough back at them, or you fought that, you might get. They're not going to lay up on you, but you might get an extra second or two in front. And over the course of the year, if I'm on the ice, 20, 25 minutes a game and 72 games, and I get that many more seconds, then I'm going to deflect 10 more in that way, and I'm going to get 5 more rebounds that way. And while I'm skating with the puck, whatever, I might get knocked off it. Mistakes might happen like they're going to, but I found if I could buy myself those little moments and that little tiny bit of space, then it helped. And if people just knew that I was at least a respectable fighter, I never went out after anybody. How many times? My penalty minutes were all fights. I don't remember, I don't slash. I don't even give vicious hooks. I don't go out to hit people from behind. I try to play hard. That's it. But I think I had respect from tough guys a lot because I didn't. As time went on, it's not like I was out there rooting guys or spearing you in the balls or anything. I was playing hard, but that was part of it too. I wanted respect. To have confidence out there, and I didn't like the anxiety that came with it either, Podes. But naturally, to answer all, did I fight too much? Yes, but I think that happened when I went pro. It started to be that I was like on the menu for the tough guys.
Right. Well, where was your identity? Like what I mean by that is,
it should have been scoring.
But was it? I mean, actually, you definitely. I mean, I never seen a guy. You rank up there with guys that you could tell like the joy in their eyes when they scored. You know what I mean? Like you thoroughly enjoyed a goal. So I'm not going to say you didn't, but where did you find that balance with you? Was it about scoring, or where did you find the respect?
No, I didn't. First of all, I didn't find the right balance. I still go back and it was the era, and I can justify the fights, but Podes, and a lot of it was anxiety, and I remember a lot of it. Sometimes the game would start, and I don't want to be thinking about fighting Francis Lassard for the whole game. I'm not going to be the same with the puck. But I found if I fight him first shift, then I don't think about it at all. Then I'm just playing. But I didn't like though, and some about it. So some of them were that. It certainly didn't help when I went to Fredericton that Michel Thierry. Again, I don't want to blame the guy. It's years and years later, but definitely I never got the tap till I went there. Junior, it was a lot of my feisty about a lot of that bullying coming out, a lot of just being in the Western League. I fought a little bit but I still wasn't like a heavyweight there. I had balls, but I was an underdog going into those fights. I mean, I
But you'd
wasn't
fight
Kevin Sawyer.
Belak, right? You would still
I
fight
did.
these guys.
I would. I would. I did fight Belak, but if we played you guys, it would probably be Jeremy Thompson or someone like that. Go with Kevin Sawyer, and the game might go on, and then eventually I might. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but in Fredericton it was the opposite. It was like the game starts, Terry, Bialoas, and I don't know how. Whatever I did that. Because that isn't what I left here for. It's unfortunate. As I play senior hockey and everything, even now and over the years, and I went down to the mine, I just realized that my passion is every time I'm on the ice post, I'm thinking, how do I put that puck in the net? I don't even think to hit. To me, hitting is just to get in between the player and the puck and the goal, and then to go the other way and score. Like that's my instinct. The other stuff, I was navigating around the game at the time, and I have a temper. But the temper comes with if my goalie got run, or I never once started a game ever and said, I'm going to fight. But once the reason came, which was a lot, I had absolutely no fear about doing it. And I knew, I had no fear, but Podes, I was good at it.
Right.
I was good at doing this and taking it and putting on, like, to get the fans going is one thing, for someone to go in and wrestle and fall down and, okay, you stood up to him. Okay, that means a lot to me, buddy, that you stood up for me. But if you get if Kevin Sawyer runs our goalie, and then I go out and, knowing that he's bigger than me and tougher than me, and I just put on a show, let alone, or I just hang in there, let alone put on a show, the place starts going, I go off the ice. Now the whole rink is the energies, and I knew I could do that. And sometimes, honestly, Podes, some of the teams I played on, I don't even necessarily think I wanted to, but I knew that I could do it. And the next guy here probably can't. And I'm not trying to be cocky when I say it, but I was good at it. And
who's your coach and try at the time? Draft year.
My draft year was Bob Laux.
So you got Lauxie there.
But Lauxie wasn't fight first. Lauxie would get mad at me sometimes.
I was going to say that. Like, would anyone ever pull your aside and say, "Hey, man, like you got 50. You're going to score 50 this year. You mean you don't be fighting Belak?"
Yeah.
Like, did that ever happen?
Yeah. Well, the Belak was a statement that needed to be made, so it wasn't that particular one. He loved that one, but the other ones, yeah, but more than once. But he wouldn't like scold me. He'd call me in and go, "Okay, we ready to go? No fight tonight, right? Let's let Butsy take care of that. Let's let Ryan Brown just come to me." And then, like, before the third period or something, I'd look up, and if something had happened or the boys were kicked out, and he might give me a wink. In other words, hey, do what you're going to do. But he never once told me to go fight or anything. He was, Bob, what did I get in? I think my draft year, like 22 fights or something. I think at the time you're going to get in 5 or 10 just being in that division, and being the way I played. But he was aware that I fought a bit too much. Now, when I went to Fredericton again, Podes, I was still, when I got drafted by Montreal, I still wasn't, my fighting was, I was a little bit like, the kid that, I don't know, rebels a bit in school, or, Terry will take care of that. He's going to get with Montreal. He's not going to be fighting that much up there. I was a bit rebellious as a talented player, right? I was at World Junior Camp, right? What happened? I got kicked out for fighting, right? Some stupid, because Dan Kluche slashed me. You could usually navigate it, but definitely life took a turn for the worse when I went to Fredericton, and I don't want to blame people, but you're asking me, and I'm telling you right now, I hated life, I hated hockey by midway through the year, and I'd never been. I used to fucking love it, as you know. Yeah. Everybody
Let's dig into that. Dig into that, because, like, and it's not pointing fingers.
Well, it was Michel Terry. It was,
but it is. I mean, and I deal with that with the guys I'm working with now, and I dealt with that as a pro. Like, there's coaches, that relationship matters a ton.
Yeah.
Right. It matters, and I don't know how else to put it. Like, you need that guy who's calling names, and who's blowing the whistle at practice to like you. You need it. And your life is different if it isn't that way. So, like, let's dig into that. I mean, whether he liked you or you didn't like him, or whether it was a personality disorder, or, like, who knows what the reason was. But, like, when did you know, or when did you think you knew that he wasn't a fan of you?
Well, first of all, I could tell right off the bat he had a Donald Trump-like personality. Now, I'm not, with everything going on, that's a hard thing. I don't mean from the violence. I mean from the point of view that he was really narcissistic. He had an ego. He certainly didn't want anybody in the room to get more attention than he got. Now, I got that right off the bat, so take from that what you will. But he saw, first of all, and the guys who drafted me, Serge Savard, Mike, Jacques Demers, right, they were fired right away. When Patrick Waugh went crazy, they got fired. So there was Michel Therrien Mario Tremblay at first up top. Mario loved me. He gave me his number. You got to look at players that were better than me ended up. Aaron Asham number 67, Ryder 72, Tux was like 60 something. He gave me number 14. It was Tremblay's number. And he said, wear it with pride. And there was it was all going well. Right. And even he said, you don't need to be fight. I got to think you don't need. That's why they didn't send me back to junior my 19-year-old year. They kept me to practice all year. And I played in 3 or 4 games. I went back to Red Deer at the deadline. But, I remember him saying, he said, yeah, you're going back there. He said, what are you going to do? Get more than 50 goals? Like, come up and practice with us. You're going to be fighting all the time. Your hands are going to be hurt. So, they were kind of going that way. They were, when I played, I was on the power play, like an exhibition. I scored. I had every reason to believe that I was going to step in and be like on the second line. Like they weren't hesitant about letting me know that. So then when everything happened, and then Vigneault came in. I don't really have much of a relationship with him. He seemed like a nice guy, but by this point, I'm not 19. I'm 20, so I can get sent down to the minors, right?
Yeah.
Because they kept me. If they could have sent me to the A when I was 19, they would have. So, but I went down there, and then right away, Therrien had this. I can't explain it. It wasn't just me. Anybody listening to this that had him at the time, again, I forgive him, but kind of thing. Like I remember him saying, one of the boys called in and said, I can send you down right away. And he called him a punk. I can't remember who it was. And I remember him calling me that. And I was like, what? Like Foggy on the first, I'll tell you something. One of the first times I met him, we were playing these exhibition games against your team. It was against the Leafs. Remember we used to go to like New Liskard and Timmins and these fucking places and play these exhibition rookie games, which just meant that if you're still standing at the end of it, because there was no rules. I remember Eric, what's his name? When begins with a B. Anyway, he was a tough guy, played for Buffalo forever. He got in 5 fights when he was just nuts. So we went to play these, and we were in a hotel, and I think it was Higgy. Higgy. You asked Higgy this, but I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but he said something to the effect of, I hope you guys know that the exact words he said, Dave or Scott King Scott King is with the organization, and Scott's father was Dave, and Dave was in the NHL, assistant coach of the Habs. And he said, I sent Scott down to New Orleans. And he said, J.F. Houle is on our team. J.F. Houle's father, Ray Jean, was the GM of the Habs. And he said, I sent him down. So he said, there's nothing stopping me from sending you guys down. I can do whatever I want. Don't think that you're going to run the ship here. Now, I don't know if he said that to us because we were first rounders. But I found it weird. Most places I went, people were at open arms, wanted to meet me and share my love and wanted to, dell me what I wanted to hear. So I'm not, part of this is my fault. I didn't know how to react to it. So then anyway, I didn't have a great start, maybe 3 or 4 games in, and maybe even more than that. Maybe 6 or 7. Because I wasn't putting out. I like maybe no goals, 1 assist in like 6 or 7 games, a few fights. But David Ling wanted to play with me, and I wasn't playing that much now. I was on like the 4th line, which didn't make sense. I'm looking at guys like Jonathan DeLille, for example. Now, God rest his soul, Johnny was one of my good friends, but Johnny played for Mike and Junior, was on the 3rd line and the 3rd round pick, whatever. And I'm going, why am I on the 4th line? Like, I get it, but you're starting from this point. I can see if I'm playing bad, but you're here to develop me, aren't you? Aren't you here to develop me? Did I miss the memo here? I'm looking in the room. He signed for $40,000. I signed for $1.25 million. I went 8th. Can anybody hear me? Like, I was like, what? So it was this weird thing. So about 6, 7 games in, he calls me into his office. So I'm like, okay. So I sit there. I look over what's going to happen. He pops a can of Coke, I think it was, whatever, it was a pop. I mean, I remember this vividly. And he lit up a cigarette. I said, okay. So I was sitting like maybe 15 feet back from him. He's behind the desk. And he like this mental, that's why I say like Trump. Like, you know what I mean? That like you got to know that you're the biggest in the room. Yeah. Such a petty thought. It's petulant. But so his chair was like bigger than mine. I was in this small one, right, looking up at him. And he just starts smoking. And 2 minutes in, I'm like, is he going to say anything? He just keeps smoking. And I'm like, so I said, I'm not, yeah, I swear, folks. I said, I'm not going to say anything either. So I just sat And I mean, you lived a lot of this. This whole time I'm doing this, you're in St. John. So I'm waiting, going, now I make it awkward. I say, you know what? What a fucking asshole. I've never dealt with this before. I don't deal with it a great way. So I just looked at his eyes. Now, it's one thing to look in your eyes, right? But even if it's your child or your wife or your father, just directly only look into something. Like I did this. And I looked right into his eyeballs for about 5 minutes. And I'm sure, I don't know what he was thinking. I think he was thinking, oh, what's wrong? He wanted like me to ask and him to tell, and I just looked right at the ignorant motherfucker, just like this. And he finished his cigarette, put it out, and he said, get out of my office. I said, okay, Tom. Wow. I went in, I told the boys, I'm like, what just happened? What in the fuck just happened? And then a few of them had stories. And anyway, then I realized, I'm like, wow.
So he smoked a whole cigarette in front of you, didn't say a word.
Cigarette. Now this is what I mean, how mind games. The next game, I'm on the first line with Linger. And he's going, oh, it makes sense. He goes, like he's a proven scorer. He needs someone, Dave starts a lot of shit. It's a lot like playing with Langkow. Just set up the best player. And I would often do that. I was good at that. So I'm like, yeah, I get a goal, 3 assists. Linger snipes a couple. I'm like, wow, it's finally, I get like 3rd star. I remember skating out for it. I remember coming in the Aiken Center, going right in the room. And what does he do? Calls my parents right in front of me. I'm like, wow. And Dad's on the phone. He passed me the phone. He goes, I thought you said you hated this guy. Terry's going to do well. I love Terry. Hangs up the phone. Good luck. Now get out of my office. I get the next game is against you guys. You know when my first shift was? In the last shift of the game, he took me. One thing to give you the pat like this. And he said, now you go fight Jeff Ware. And I went on and I fucking pounded him. And now I'm starting to go, what am I doing? I felt bad. I like Jeff Ware. I have no reason to go out. Now there's where the page turned. Now I'm going out to fight players. It never happened till then. So, and then it started to become part of my thing, right? Then I realized. So the next game, basically what he was saying, and I didn't realize it at the time, was that fight and you'll play. So I led the American League. I had 34 fights, and rookie of the year, I had 21 goals.
Right.
But now all of a sudden, I got called up. Podes, one of the worst feelings I've ever had. I got called up. You would think this would be good. I was on a cab on the way to what a feeling, right? You're in Fredericton, and you get the call. What? And I called up. It was the afternoon. It was like maybe 4 o'clock. I was going to the rink. Everybody's starting to get there for 5 for the 7:30 game. And I'm pumped. And I'm telling the guys, this could be my time. I'm really excited. And there's a few injuries. I said, I know I'm at least going to get 5 games here. Just looking at the guys who are injured and the injury. I said, I'm going to make the most of it. I was happy. And then when I opened up the paper, it said, what's his name? Christoph Oliwa in the lineup tonight, ... It was in the news and notes. And it said, Terry Ryan called up from Fredericton as a possible opponent for Oliwa tonight, ... And I was like, oh, wow. And then I went out for a warm-up, and Sheldon Surrey, our good buddy, was over playing for Jersey. And he feathered one off my shin in warm-up and winked. And I thought, well, I'm going to get a chance to play against Sheldon. And it wasn't the case. I didn't end up fighting Oliwa, but that's why I was there. I didn't get a shift. I was on the bench, and they were like, okay, he's not out. He's not out. I was like, who's not out? What? What are you talking about? What am I? But I was fighting these guys, and I was doing okay. So I'm like, did I do this? Did Michelle? It just started to be, what is happening? And then I would get sent down, and Tyrion would go on with more of this shit.
You fought Ty Domi, though. In the end, that's what's so strange to me. I mean, you had your, in your book, right?
Domi was, again, I don't want to blame. I'm just saying the fighting mentality of when it became that I'm on the ab. Yeah. Sorry. You're right. The fighting Domi and stuff, I did that to myself. But you know what that was, Podes? The first time I fought Domi, it was for the boys at home. It was a joke. Not a joke. I'm not going to put fighting in hockey joke, but because that really sounds callous. But I just said I was in the summer. Short version of this, I was in the summer. My buddies had just graduated from high school. I just got drafted. I was trying to impress a girl, Jillian Chipman. And people were like, "Hey, if you play against," we had a few beers in us at the time. 17, whatever, 4 or 5 beers on a deck. And they're like, "Yeah, will you fight Ty Domi?" Yeah, sure. I never was going to do it. I'd never played in the NHL before. I just didn't think I'm going to get in against them till like 3 years down the road when these guys are in university and she's up and living in Ontario with some guy. No one's going to. Anyway, so then when they said it, and I just thought, you know what? On the way to the rink, I thought that was like a one-off. But I was like, if I do it, he's going to have to like kill me at center ice in order for it to be a bad thing. Because even with each punch I get, everybody there is going to be going, oh my God, how is this happening? I was an 18-year-old, first just drafted 3 weeks before that, or because it was a late July 8th. So 6 weeks before that, I'm drafted. And now I'm fighting a guy who just did this one with Probert. Arguably, you know, Probert was the toughest, but Leafs fans will make an argument he was the toughest in the league at the time. And I knew that, so I did it. But, you know, I wasn't doing that thinking that this is going to lead to, like, me fighting those guys in the future. And I don't think Jacques Demers thought that either. Like, at that time, when I came in, Demers, like, winked and laughed. He's like, you're nuts. And in camp, I fought Brashear. But I also always knew, Podes, I always knew I can't make myself go score. So, like, when in Montreal camp, I wanted to leave an impression. And I was doing okay. You know, the odd time, you give a first round pick, an offensive player with 50 goals, the puck enough. I'm going to do some things that are impressive, right? And you give it to me and playing it. So I remember going like I had a real nice goal one time, and I don't usually get those. And I remember having like a couple of moments, but there was a couple of like giveaways, and there was a couple where I wasn't a great skater. I needed to work on that, and you could notice sometimes. This is the NHL now, not junior. So I'm like, Jesus, I wanted to sign a contract too, right? I hadn't signed yet. I was drafted, and I know my weaknesses. And I'm like, I think my skating might have been exposed there a little bit. So just in my mind, I couldn't make myself score. But if I just go out and like fight Domi, they'll go, wow, that guy got balls, right?
Yeah.
It was completely
True that though.
Yeah, but you know, I did make my own bed as much as anything else. I wanted to explain that Tyrion thing because I really didn't like him, Podes. And I came home halfway through the year. They had to call me to go back, right? Like people don't know that. When I held out and didn't go back to camp, it wasn't for money or none of that. I just wanted out of his. I didn't want out of Montreal. It was unfortunate because it was Montreal. They were my favorite team always. But I'm like, it's come to it. I need out of this. It was this guy. I need to get rid of him. And then he ended up going up. There was no escaping Michel Therrien. That's all I wanted. And it turned into if they just traded me like they traded Tucker and Higgy and Ash and fucking Valerie Bure and Craig Conroy and Jim Campbell, if they just traded me like they traded all those guys who were big prospects, nothing would have been made of it. And maybe I could make up with that guy. If I ever see him, I'll shake his hand. But I'm telling you, only because a lot of time has gone by and I feel bad ripping in public like this, but this happened. And this was a first-round pick's career, and I fully believe that I just would have had more games. I don't know. You never know. How could you say I would have been? But I'm looking at the guys that were there. I'm looking at the relative stats in every other league I played in. And if I couldn't have played 1 year on the fourth line in the NHL, but I really don't know who could have. Right. And I'm not trying to be cocky when I say that. I'm not saying I would have gotten 20. I do think it's possible with the right team. I would have had 10 or 15, like an Aaron Asham. There's no reason for me not to think that. But I can't say it was a guarantee. But you give a first-round pick 100 games to fail. That's what I think, not 8.
Right.
Like,
what do you if you
I know skating was the knock on me, but it was the knock in the AHL. It was the knock in Major Junior. It was the knock certainly when I was 14 playing Junior A. And I always seemed, like Rick Tocchet, who's not a great skater, to get it done. But my hockey IQ never got challenged because I didn't play enough when I was up there.
What's your takeaway like from that? If you were to be in that environment again now with, you know, life experience and, you know, I mean, everything that you're talking about, how would you have handled that relationship differently?
100% different because I didn't speak. I looked at him like the enemy, where I should have gone in, shaken his hand and gone, Mike, let's be on the same page. There's so much I would have done differently. He couldn't have. If I'd approached it like that and he still was an asshole, then, you know, they would have reason to fire him. But I didn't. I looked at it like I was Sean Thornton on your team, firing pucks at him. I remember we'd be out there and you guys would be chirping him. And I respected him like that, and I treated him like that. I would go in and go, whatever. Like, I just want to get out of it. Sometimes he'd just be talking to me. I'm going, okay, I'll do it, but I fucking hate you. And that's the way it was. And we went on like that for 2 years. And I just should have said, you know, I understand where you're coming from. Like, please understand it from my end. I'm going to try to do this. If you don't want me to celebrate after goals, I won't. You know, it became, you know, I get mad at PK Subban, right? He didn't like that out of me either. And what am I doing? I know it's stupid to take the passion away from a kid, but why didn't I just fucking play ball? I don't need to do this after I score, right? I need to
Yeah.
go out there and get those opportunities, and I need to put it in the net, and I need to handle myself off the ice. But there should be no friction if a coach doesn't want me to do that, or if a coach doesn't want me to have a blue mohawk, don't have one, right? But I would be like, yo, you're violating on my rights if you say that I can't, and I'd push them, right? I remember getting in like 11:05, and like it was 11 was our curfew. But I went to a Metallica concert. I went on my own. I'm like, well, I'm not breaking the rules here, Mike. I don't have any beer on me. I'm not smoking dope. I'm home. I went on my own. There's probably guys out. I don't know anything. I'm just going to my room. But that's 5 minutes. Like, rather than us just be, because that's bullshit, right?
Right.
Rather than me tell them beforehand, can I go to a Metallica concert? I might be in a little bit late. I'm not going to be drinking. We're all adults. Oh, I didn't do that. Nor did he react the right way. Come on, Mike. It's 4 minutes and 20 seconds. But we ended up just, for lack of a better way to put it, being very volatile with each other and hating each other. And I do think the unfortunate thing is that there are so many ways that we see the game that are parallel. He's just got his back up a little bit, and I'm too over the top that way. But Mike is a great coach when it comes to X's and O's. He's certainly outside of that bullshit, knows how to motivate players by putting you with the right line combinations. And with, when we go to dinner, like he'd always, there's another side. He'd go like, Terry, you're off the wall, but no better. We don't have a game for 5 days. Here's $1,000. Take these guys out now. They're rookies. Making sure they, there was that too.
Right.
So it's not like we couldn't have spoken. I was as guilty as he was for that.
I think it's a power trip. I mean, I have a similar experience with Brian Maxwell in Spokane right before he quit, and it was my draft year. We, for whatever reason, I still to this day don't know why we didn't why there's something about me he didn't like, or whether it was like the relationship with my dad that he didn't like, because my dad was pretty vocal in the stands, and there's a note to parents there too. I mean, your passion and love for your kid is well intentioned, but sometimes that can maybe go awry. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. But we were in Seattle. I think we lost 3-2 or something like that. I had both goals, second star of the game, come back to Spokane. It was back-to-back, and sat on the bench the entire game. And without a meeting with Maxi, without not I did anything wrong. I just sat there for the whole 60. And the only time in my career, except for I even got one shift in an NHL game in the Rangers. I almost sat that's the only time in my life that I sat for an entire game. That was after scoring 2 goals, and never had a meeting about it. That's mind games, big time, and how did you so that scenario with you said sounds like super similar. I mean, you have 4-point night, you come back and you get one shift and it's to fight. That stuff happens, I guess, is why I'm bringing it up. And it's this word called mental toughness. You need it, but it's how did you go about it then? And even that scenario, would you have walked into his office and maybe had a chat if you could be?
Oh yeah, honestly, I've really learned. I can honestly say I've really learned, and it took a few things like that to happen. It took me watching other players how they handle things. It took refs. I mean, again, I still play. Probably not now after COVID, but right up until 43, I'll be 44 next week or in 3 days. So and great level, like Allen Cup seeking, I've lost in 2 Allen Cup finals. So I'm still very much have my finger on the pulse. So, everybody on our team, for example, played either pro or major junior or some, CIS or something, Maritime Junior League, and they come back. And so, you just learn, and I ran for politics. I've been I've had 2 or 3 different sub careers going on in the film world as a sales rep. The more you deal with people at the time, you're a hockey player. You really, other than hockey, I didn't have anything to base any experience. I had no professional relationship with anybody other than my agent. He's going to tell me what I want to hear. The whole world is telling me how good I am. I'm opening the paper. I'm reading how good I am. So it was a bit of adversity, first of all. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I would always love to talk to people that are going to tell me the right thing, but not the wrong. And I really, really have learned. I mean, for the last, playing ball hockey. I'm in the Ball Hockey Hall of Fame. I've played 5 world championships with Team Canada. I've been the captain for a couple of them. And at first I remember in 2003, when the world champion slamming my stick when the ref made a bad call. That ended then. That ended. Ask any ref that's come down my radar in the last 15 years, man. After every game, I make a point to go shake their hands. I try to talk it out. I call in the radio shows on behalf of other people that might not be able to articulate it. They're coming from the same league or whatever. That's it. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying I really try to be open-minded about things. And I know without a doubt that if I went through that again, Michel Terry and I would be friends. I did not react the right way. I gave him what he wanted. And it's like the Beatles say, all you need is love. But they're my favorite. I never really thought about that song, right? It's never going to, look what's happening in the States. One side is fuck you. And the other side is, well, they were going to do this. Well, fuck you. Well, we'll impeach them. How about this? Everybody relax. Tell each other something good, right? Let's start seeing, what do we agree on? Let's shake hands and go over that stuff first. Well, here we agree. We agree infrastructure should be a lot better. Okay, let's work on that first. Well, it's like hockey. Mike, what do we need to work on? Let's go in the right direction now. You might think this of me. Okay, I won't dye my hair blue. That's not much of a sacrifice. Now, what would you like? Should I go train? Do you have any recommendations, Michelle, where I can go train in the summertime? You seem like you know what you're doing. How about this? I never once, other than when he came in practice, said like, look, do you want me here on the power play? I just always assumed I was in front of the net, low guy in front of the net. And, just something like that. And now I realize, not that would have solved the problem, but it often does. I've come across coaches that I didn't love. And often, rather than just go, you don't have to address it straight on. Hey, Derek, can I talk to you for a second? What you can do is go, hey, Derek, look, if I'm breaking out, now, you want me to take this route or that route? And he'll go, oh, he wants to talk about something. You start like that. Okay, now when I take that, you know what? Well, Higgy's going to let Higgy rush with it because, he's better than, and then all of a sudden you have a conversation and you start there. Maybe next time or the time after that, you start working on bigger things. But I had my back up. I was an arrogant kid. Again, looking at the situation, I think Michelle should have handled it a little bit better being 31 years old, or 33, whatever he was. But no, point is, I'm not blaming. I could have done a lot wrong, but the other part could have done a lot more better. But everybody goes through that. You learn. It's experience. We just did it in the public eye. Most people, when they're 22, are learning how to go navigate the lineup at the lunchroom at university, right? Which is not in the public eye. If I snap when I'm 20 years old on the prof, I might get fired out of the course. I can take it again in January, and no one's going to find out I was immature. But when you do it on such a colossal level that's being, in the papers and everybody's following along, you can get caught up in it, and you're only a kid. Most of the lessons like that, Podes, I learned after hockey.
Sure.
So I'm not the same person, but I look back, trying to be objectively, I don't know where he was coming from with those little things like the cigarette. I know what he was trying to do, but it didn't work, and it hurt me mentally. And for years and years and years, I went through a really, really rough time. I can honestly say that. It was as much me, though. But, I still talk to therapists. Remember Wayne Hollywell? He worked with you guys with Team Canada. He worked with us with the Canadians. I mean, I talked his ear off, right?
But the thing is, man, and you hear it time and time again, and it's like, with me having conversations with my clients now and even parents, right? Like lots of times with parents. And I'm not talking either 12, 13-year-olds either, but I'm talking like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, especially these kids that are now going to the draft. Like they're no different than you and I in the fact that they think they got it figured out. Like you thought you had it figured out. Obviously, you didn't think you were doing the wrong thing. Just like me when I was 20. I mean, I didn't think I was doing the wrong thing, but we had it wrong. Like we got it wrong. And that's when I talk to these parents, I'm like, surround yourself, like whoever that is, like find somebody that gives a shit about you and about your kid in a real way that gets it.
Huge.
That gets it and can help you with this stuff. Because like you said, I mean, one bad relationship in this game can screw you.
Yeah.
A couple mistakes can screw you. And this is like, you work your whole life for this shit. And then something like that, you can navigate a scenario, a relationship the wrong way, and it can go south, and it can go south in a hurry, and of course you're not going to get it right, but like we're trying to minimize the chances for us to screw up, I think, right, on this thing, right? Like let's try and be honest with this, and let's try and not make mistakes. And when you're 18 and you think you got it all figured out and you're not asking questions, you're not taking advice from anyone, you're screwed because you're going to get it wrong.
I was too, I didn't want to bother my parents with it. And then it becomes no one, and I didn't want to rat him out. That wasn't my thing. I'm not going to call the GM. Not once did I call Réjean Houle and say, get rid of this guy. That did not ever. I'm sure they knew that I didn't like the guy, but
But even that's weird, TR.
Again, and even if I had done that, even if I called Reggie and at least, not he's not going to fire him because of me, but at least let him know, and not in a bad way. Reggie, what can I do to mend the relationship? I never did any of that. I just got mad. I had no one to talk to. I did it. I mean, I did. I didn't reach out though. I didn't reach out. My father played professional hockey. I was embarrassed. My God, looking back, so.
But yeah, take the account. I mean, I'm all about accountability. You know that. Listening to you right now, you're about accountability too. But like, if we would shift that light and put it on the other direction on the organizational side, like, and I think it's part of the times then, not as much now, thank God. But like, where is the adult in the room with this? Like, you're the 8th overall selection. This is an organization that should want you to be the best that you can be. Where's the communication on the other side? TR, what's going on here? How can we help you? Like, we want you to be better, right? Like, those conversations weren't happening, and it wasn't us versus them, meaning players versus management culture in most organizations.
It's honestly true. The first time I went up and met with Ray Jean-Houl, because he came in, it was Serge Savard. Yeah, he came in. Anyway, the first time I was in with him, like the end of the year meetings,
Mm-hmm.
you go in, and I can't remember. I was in Montreal, so either we played a game there in the AHL, or it was like the end of the year outro meetings, whatever it was. Because at the end of the year, Black Aces would go up. Yeah. But anyway, he called me in. It was the first time that I met him. And like, we were talking for about 5 minutes, and I was like, "Well, that's weird." And he said to me, he goes, "So what do you think your goals are for next year or whatever?" I said, "Well, I'd like to make the team." And he goes, "Please." And he was just looking down. He goes, "Well, Russ, I said, "What do you mean, Russ?" He thought I was Russ Gouger. I'm their first round pick. I went, "Well, I do already have 3 games with the team," or whatever it was. So, whatever it was. But anyway, so, but he was always nice to me. I just mean, like, there was this weird, lack of communication going on. I remember, again, now, Podes, like, it's one thing, like, Mike Brown played on my team in Red Deer. Now, they drafted him to fight because it was he went 17th overall, I think, to Vancouver. And, he had 44 points in his draft year. He could score a little bit, but he was more of a not a goon, but the really outskirts of that. I mean, he could skate around out there, but he was a tough guy. He got drafted to fight. I didn't get drafted to fight. Again, like, they were really kind of wanted me at first not to fight as much because, again, we've been through that. Well, again, I'm a first-round pick. I'm rookie of the year in my team in the division. 21 goals, 256 penalty minutes. They don't know because I'm down there thinking, 34 majors. I say 34 fights. I had 34 majors. I don't remember sticking anybody higher or anything, because I don't want to be misquoted, but that's what I had. So 32, 33, but I remember not getting any other 5 minutes. So 34 majors is likely. And they're thinking about me apparently to score goals. What am I doing? What can you imagine now if you had a first round pick? Now, let's just say relative terms even. Let's say, because 34, it doesn't happen anymore. But let's say even 10 fights. What are you doing? Like, what was happening? I'd like to know what they were thinking as I was down there, like fighting, go on a road trip, fight Francis Lessard twice one game and Frank Bialowas. To get kicked out after 3 fights. What are they, what is going through their mind? Right. I was still going on with my life, but looking, and I didn't really think much of it. I'm like, they must know that I'm doing this. Like, so I guess, but, like, that's like this, you've given me 1.25 million reasons not to hurt this. But this, if it goes into Frank Bialowas' grill, is probably not going to score on the power play. I still look back and I can't understand it for the life of me. All I can understand is that maybe all I can make of it is that Savard and Demers got fired, and the other, so they were fine to just let me go and just let me do that. And if I became a fighter, I don't know. They still gave me the money. Like, Savard and Demers didn't sign. Savard and Demers didn't sign me. Like, Reggie Houle signed me to my contract. Right. So it's weird.
That's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal too. That sometimes the casual fan doesn't really get. Because it doesn't make sense, right? Honestly, it doesn't make sense. Like, from the optics of it is, you should, as an NHL organization, you should want to put the absolute best product you can on the ice. wherever
Yeah.
you can find that from, right? And if you inherit people within that organization, they're still your assets and your prospects and whatever you need to do, right? But there is definitely reasons and scenarios where new guys come in and they want to put their own fingerprint on that team. And
Yeah.
like, and it's like very conscious that they want to put their own fingerprint on that team. And that could mean guys like you or guys like me or guys like whoever that are involved in either a draft or a trade pre, you know, this new guy coming in that you just don't get the shot anymore because they have no desire to have you become one of those players. They want someone else to fill that spot.
Yeah, and I find that gets ignored a lot in the hockey. A lot of people don't talk about it when these people come out and in. Like, you know, it definitely to some level, every move affects to some level, some way more than others. But yeah, that's the thing. So, you know, looking back, and again, I didn't, other than Michel Therrien with those, you know, we had a real rocky relationship. Other than that, like I got along with everybody up there. There was a lack of communication, though. You know, like I shouldn't be finding out either in a cab on the way. Again, you just signed me. I'm on the menu for Christophe Oliwat tonight. Is this for real? Like,
Right.
How did you not even say this? How am I under the rink on the way to the rink now, putting on my gear, wondering? Like I was in the room putting on my gear. No one still said anything to me. I want to play in the NHL. I want to, but I'm really thinking, am I going out there now to like just have a shift and fight? Am I putting on my gear?
How old were you at that point?
That was my second. Yeah, so I was 21.
So even think about that, right? I mean, 21. I guess. We could call ourselves men at that point, you know. But like a young man, right? Figuring stuff out. You're coming up, you're getting called up to the NHL, and there's no conversation, like you just said. Like there's not like take 5 minutes with a guy who's been in the minors for the last year and say, hey man, like this is where we got you. Awesome, you're coming up here. Like just be a human being, right? Like there was none of that, right?
Not only that, more than once, but I remember because I remember talking with Brad Brown about this, like. I don't know if it was that time, but more than once, you go up like that, and the odds are because they didn't talk to you much. But like Steamer, usually one of the trainer guys, he'd come down with like, "Here's an envelope for you," and I'd open up like plane ticket to be there for like that afternoon. Like there was, and again, they weren't trying to be assholes. There was just lack of communication. Oh, really? Send Terry, send this down the room for Terry. Don't even tell me I'm going. That's how I would find out.
Right.
And then I'd fly down to Fredericton, and I swear, most teams, I'll often say like. I get it, you know, team first and all that, but I just still don't understand how I would go down to Fredericton and they would be aware. Like Michel Therrien was there. I gave you no reason not to play me. Why am I on the fourth line? I could see it in junior. If you got something to go by, I could see it anywhere. But as a first round pick, you guys pick me. Now, if I come in now, I should play my way off the fourth. But why is a guy that didn't get drafted? And again, I'm not trying to be cocky when I say it, but if you're starting from scratch. What did he do different than me? Do you have a better game at New Lisker? Like, you got to protect. You gave me again $1 million. That's what I couldn't get. I'm not a team guy, but and I hated being vocal about it. But I'm just like on every other team, I can see it. In senior hockey, even if you're not doing this, you know. But if we're starting from scratch, right? Jose Theodore would likely be your number one goalie. You picked him. He's coming up. He's the highest picked goalie you got in your organization. I'm guessing he's going to start. I'm guessing I'm going to play. I'm guessing Matt Higgins is a first-round pick. We're going to see him not in his suit. I'm guessing Brad Brown, first-round pick, probably going to be in the top 6, right? I'm like, I just don't get it. So all that I can come up with is that Therrien had his backup. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sure they weren't calling going, make sure our prospect, our arguable number one prospect is on the fourth line. You know, show him more adversity. I just don't see that.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, that's funny. A similar, oh, are you there? Oh, my screen was black for a second. Similar story, and not a boohoo scenario, but I mean, just the way it goes, right? When you say, like, as far as pedigree is concerned and where guys are coming from and how you assume, you know, I mean, that it doesn't start off equal or whatever. But that was when I got traded to Los Angeles, to LA. And that was the year I had 42.
Yeah.
With
you're the leading goal scorer, weren't you?
Yeah, in the AHL, right? Almost, and then went to the IHL and got 5 more. Had a 47-goal season in the minors. Got traded for Perot. Go to LA. Andy Murray comes in, and Brad Chartrand, who was my teammate in St. John's,
yeah, I
like
remember
that same year, he had 16 goals, like 40 points, you know, 40 penalty minutes. I mean, he wouldn't fight anybody, right? Like he's a buddy of mine, like, and nothing, no disrespect to Brad Chartrand.
You're like, what? You're like, what? What happened?
But I'm like, now he made the NHL this year, and I'm in the minors.
I know,
And like,
I know.
and I didn't have a bad camp. I had a great camp, but Andy Murray, Brad Chartrand played for him on the Team Canada, right? Like,
I remember that happening, Post.
so that stuff
was the
happens. You know what I mean?
that
It
was
doesn't
one of the
make
more
sense.
glaring ones. Yeah.
Yeah, he had 50 games in the NHL that year. Brad Chartrand made the Kings, and after a 47-goal season at 23, I was, or 22 in the minors. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. You do what you can, but yeah, that would be one thing. I mean, as far as my moral of this story is, like, I wasn't ever a coach's buddy, and not that relationship can be fake, because you don't want to fake it as a player. I'm not telling guys to go out there and fake it, but you should be curious about who your coach is and about that relationship.
And yeah, you should. And the other moral of the story is that outside of that, hockey goal and everything, us going through that, though, again, I said at the beginning, we're parallel universe. I got to take off here too, folks, but like I said, it's because you go through that. It's a lot to take. Everybody told me, like, once it caught on, not when I was like 8, but I'm saying, like, once we were well into our teens prospects, you're going to play in the NHL, and we put up the numbers to prove it. I mean, they told that to Mike Dubinsky, but he got hurt, and then he didn't have numbers, and what are you going to do? But I had no reason not to think it. So, but to go through all that and everything I've said and everything you've said, really did help me. It helped me, but I no doubt become a more centered person. I know I'm quirky and eccentric and all that. I might come off one way in these books and interviews, but as a rule, as a person, I feel way more grounded. I feel like I deal with people better, and I certainly feel like I'm more beneficial to young players, because I've seen, if you don't go through that adversity, and I'm not right every time, but I'm great to bounce ideas off of if you're young, if nothing else, because of certain things that I could have done differently. And a lot of people don't, but they just still find themselves in the, I made some decisions that directly impacted my life. But the thing is, what is the goal? Is it fame? Is it money? I mean, yeah, that's part of it, but or to be set up and not have, financial worries, really, because that takes care of everything for your family and everything. But I'm happy. I had my life is such a roller coaster. And, the way things happen now, Penny Lane, my daughter, I couldn't imagine that. Tyson, I raised Tyson. I mentioned BJ Young earlier. Well, he passed away in a car accident. Tyson's his son. Tyson's going to pilot. He's going to be a pilot now. He's taking lessons. He's well into it. He's like 2 years into it.
Mm-hmm.
Out in Alberta. Like, other than those things, and the further I get away from them, the less angry I am. Now, I'm happy. We played in the NHL. Okay. And that's an accomplishment. The other things that happened, as each day goes by, my life presents more and more adventure, more and more new experiences. I appreciate life more because there is an end. There's a start and a finish. Right now, hopefully I'm in the middle. But from appreciating life to, appreciating the fact that I did play in the NHL, I didn't for years. I was, 8 games, what the then you're like, yeah, I played in the NHL for the Montreal Canadiens. I've got world championships in ball hockey. I'm acting once in a while. I do stunts. I work in films. Like, I really don't have much to complain about. I'm in my hometown. I ended up somewhere that I wanted to be.
An author of a second book, which we didn't get into. How quick do you have to go? Do you have time to tell one story from that book, or do you got to get out of here?
I'll tell you a story from the book.
Tell a good one, because my God, I mean, I read a couple of those, and I mean, your stories really are epic, and sure. So I think you should share one and get some people laughing here before we go.
I will. So now, first of all, before I tell the story, because I always forget, and I'm going to forget. If you want to get this book, my Instagram, send me a DM. It's at Terry Ryan 2020. My Twitter is at Terry Ryan 20. And my Gmail or Terry Ryan at Gmail, or Terry Ryan, 2020, Terry Ryan 2020 at gmail.com. The reason I say that, as an author, it's much more beneficial if you buy the book off me. I'll personalize it for you. I'll send it out for basically the same price with shipping, because I had a great book company, but the way it works, if my book sells at, say, chapters, because of all the costs, and it's just a shitty business to be successful at. Really, I get 50 cents of the $20. Now, I wrote it all myself. I provided all the pictures, and this is not a bad deal. It's my second deal. It's just the way it works most of the time. So, but I buy them myself for cost off the company, and then I can resell them signed. People like that, a little personalized for $5 more for 25, and then I can make $5 to $10 a book, about $7 a book. So that way I make a bit of money on it. So
Right.
what I do is I do up orders, personalize it, throw in a picture or two from me and my dad, and I send it in the mail for $25, which is a good deal. But anyway, so that's that. But I'll tell you my story about my last NHL shift. Now I didn't know it was going to be my last NHL shift. First of all, so it was 90. No, I guess it would have been 99, 2000. So I got called up. It was against the Blackhawks. It was ended up being my buddy Danny Cleary's first goal in the NHL. So he had people there from Newfoundland, and we were both with IMG, so it was unique to be. And I didn't think it was my last game, but all this was happening. So I was dressed that night. They had called up me and Dave Morissette. You remember Dave Morissette? Big right hand. Used to fight Thordy fought Thordy the night you fought somebody in St. John's. Great fight. Right after it, he fought Thordy. We had great rivalries there too, although the Spoke Tri-City was better because it was more established. But anyway, Dave Morissette, he's the only guy fucking in Probert's book. Probert said he hit him and cut him and hurt him. So we get called up. Now it's like a 3 or 4 games that were there. I think I dressed one. I didn't play, but I sat out one. It was one of those. We still hadn't really been in the lineup to get shifts. And I look back, I tried to find the exacts all this, so that part of the story is foggy. But I know we were up for about 2 weeks and I hadn't played yet. So Moose, I think, fought the game before, Rob Ray or something. So we're sitting there, we're, for lack of a better way to put it, we're grocery sticks, right? Like we're on the bench. They tell us we're not going to play that much. It was me, Dave Morissette, and Trent McCleary, who ended up retiring because he got a puck in the throat not long after. A real go-getter, played in Swift Current. Against all odds, made the NHL. As close to Rudy Rudiger in the NHL as you're going to get. A real go-getter, but, we're playing Chicago. He's not real tough. He's tough, but he's not, I'm going to beat Probert tough. So, tough to just the way he played. I mean, real tenacious. So anyway, we're there, and we're called up. Yeah.
TR, just give me 1 second. I got to take 1 sec. 1 sec.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Hey, boys. You guys are on internet, right? Yeah, get off of it, please. Screwing up my connection. TR, sorry, I'm back.
I told you something earlier. This is from.
Oh, look at that.
Terry Ryan.
Go. Yeah, there you go. That's front page, eh?
A name to remember. Le Journal in the Quebec Sports, a whole thing. Right?
You must have been lighting it up there.
I wasn't kidding there. Like they came to see me play the last thing. They're thinking the Toronto Red Wings, like something like that. Anyway, that's here and there. Yeah. So anyway, we're called up. I'll move on with the story. We're on the bench. I'm pretty much know we're not going to play. I can't remember why. They might have told us, not in a malicious way either. Something. They were like, Benoit Brunet was hurt. I can't remember, but I remember the knowledge was on the bench. Maybe it was the 4th game we're up and still hadn't got a shift. So we're next to each other. So me and Moose are playing the clock game. So we're looking up, and I'm betting on where the clock's going to stop. So like I say 7, he says 4, whatever. It's $100 a spin, whatever. Boom. So anyway, I was up a couple spins early on. Now he gets a call to go out and get a shift. I'm like, hey, good luck, But it's for them. They got a line. One line is Bob Probert, Cam Russell, and Mark Janssens. 3 real tough guys. And so Moose goes out, and this is the infamous Probert fight. It's unbelievable. Look it up on YouTube, Podes. You're not going to believe it. I watched it with my own eyes. I could not believe what I was seeing. Probert remains, to me, I think, the toughest ever, for a lot of reasons, and definitely the most. I met him a few times, seemed like a great guy. I'm not downplaying Ty Domi either. I really, Domi has been great to me, and I hate, but it's Bob Probert for more reasons than one. I really looked up to him. He was Langer's buddy too. So anyway, we're playing them, and I can't believe it. Moose asked him to go, and boom, boom. And this is I got Probert's book there. I just reread it the other day. Tough Guy, it's called. And Moose hits him with one, and he gets cut, and he goes down. And I'm like, oh my God, and he leaves the game, and he comes back in the second, but I'm big Probert fan. There's no YouTube, obviously, but I watched every game I could. I knew all his fights, and I'm going, holy shit, Moose just beat Bob Probert. Now I'm on the bench. He comes back. I'm like, holy, we can't believe it. He's sitting there. I'm sitting there. Now, as time goes, I don't get a shift, which was totally understandable. I'm not mad about it or anything. I don't want to get like I was, because again, I'm still navigating my way. If I can just stay up in the NHL, whatever. Maybe I was playing poorly. I can't remember, but in my head, I was just like, hey, it was, oh shucks, whatever. Like, anybody need a water, whatever it would be. So we're going in between periods, and I'm kind of whistling, just getting ready to go out, and I'm getting hungry, because you know how it is. You eat your pregame meal at like 12:30 or 1. If you're playing the game, I like to play hungry, but you don't really notice it if your legs are going, and after the game, you get hungry about an hour after. But I'm getting starving now because I've done nothing. I didn't even work out before the game. So now the only thing I was waiting for, the first period ends. So I'm thinking it's still the same way. But back then, if you didn't get a shift in the first, unless there was some kind of, because I'm totally cold, and they didn't come say ride the bike in between periods or anything, even though I would do that. Usually, if you knew you were, so I just had every reason to think I wasn't getting out there. So again, I'm totally cold at this point. The last time I put my skates on, or I tied up my skates, was like 2 hours ago. So we're like midway through the second, and I say to Steamer behind me, that one of the trainers, like, I'm not playing, so I put pop. Saku Koivu used to drink Coke in between periods. The only guy I've seen do it. I hear Chara does it. I've never seen anybody do it but Koivu. But he did it, so he had some Coke. So I put it in a water bottle, and I got Steamer to get me a Sheehan Show, a hot dog from the Molson Center at the time, now the Bell Center. So he would, and I knew it was on TV. So I was taking the hot dog here. Again, like, I haven't skated in 2.5 hours. This is like late second period. So I'm not thinking I'm going to get out there. So I got the hot dog, and I know it's hockey in Canada. So I'm like eating the hot dog, so cameras won't see it. I'm shooting the shit on the bench, right? I'm a little too comfortable now, but I'm a bit used to it. So my skates, they're really hurting. I got lace fight, but I got them done really, really tight. And the back of my mind, I know I might get there. I'm not totally taking this for granted, but they told me I wasn't going to play. And the 3 games before that, I ain't going to play. So like, whatever. So my laces are killing me. I ended up missing a month because of this lace fight. Oddly enough, I got hurt from tying my skates tight and not going out there. I get injured from not playing. So, but anyway, Moose is like next to me. He goes, "You're not going to get out there. They told you you're not going to just undo your skates, man. I'm killing." So I undo my skates, just the top rung, and then I got 2 hot dogs in me now, and I'm like really sweating. But I'm really sweating. I'm going, I'm looking around at Steamer. I said, "Did you put fucking hot sauce on that? What is going on?" And anyway, this is what happened. So I ate it, and I started sweating ever so slightly because I'm warm. It's in there. I ate some of my digestive. I'm slating. I'm perspiring, sweating. Sorry, I'm perspiring ever so slightly. But Moose goes, "Well, you didn't notice." He goes, "The boys put deep heat or whatever it was, the hot stuff on your helmet right here in warm up, thinking they'd prank me, right? Because it'd go in my eyes." I'm like, I don't wear a helmet in warm up. It's the only time I had the flow going. I'm like, this is the only time anybody gets to see me. And I swear, Podes, I used to go out there and like once in a while, like write my number down and then pass it to a girl in between the thing, like wink, whatever. I was loving life. I said, I'm not putting on my helmet in the warm up in the NHL. So he's like, oh fuck, we just assumed it. I'm like, didn't you see me skating around with flow? I was the last guy off. Warm up is my time to shine. I was picking corners. I'm like, no one noticed I didn't have my helmet on. So now he's like, no. I'm like, I think it was him anyway. So my eyes are going, oh Jesus. My eyes are really burning. And I'm spraying it down. Steamer's like, oh, milk will help that. I'm like, go fuck yourself. So anyway, so now we start. Moose is like, and now my skates are undone. My eyes are hurting, and they're all red. And then Moose is talking. And he's like, what do you want to be when after hockey? I said, I don't know. We're having this conversation. And he goes, I think I'll be an elephant hunter. And I'm like, what in the fuck? He's saying in his French, an elephant under, an elephant under. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, well, where are they going to hide? Where are they going to hide, Terry? I'm like, God. So we're having this idiotic conversation. Idiotic. And he's been kind of chirping Probert from the bench. And I don't know if Probert, and not, I think they fought. And when they went to the penalty box, when they came back on, I think they had maybe a conversation because it didn't seem like real. Probert seemed to be joking. But anyway, he came back and Probert chirped me while they're going by the bench. And I said, I didn't say that, Mr. Probert, just kind of kidding. And the boys were laughing. So it was still kind of a laid back, even though we're in the middle of an NHL game. I just didn't think I was going to get out there. So right at that point, Vigneault comes down. He says, Ryan Poulin, Patrick Poulin played with us at the time, and McCleary. And I went, whoa, wow. I'm still thinking that it's a TV timeout, so I get a chance to go out there. So I tie up. I'm kind of going, fuck, but it's an NHL game. So I'm going, yes, I get to play an NHL game. You got to put your skates on the ice to get credit for the game. So I'm like, at least, but ideally, we win the face-off, and I get the fuck off right away because I'm just not prepared. So anyway, so I do the top rung of my skates off. Boys are howling. I go out there, my helmet, I got her all ready to go. It looks like I've already been in a fight because they're red around my eyes. Anyway, so we the face-off's about to happen. Clary's out there too. He's chirping me from the bench. I mean, as my good buddies, it's one of his first games. He scores a goal. So anyway, when we go out, when comes time for the face-off, if you ever noticed, there's most face-offs, but especially I used to notice in those big rinks when they were packed, because there's all this noise, there's music, you can hear the murmur of the crowd, especially in the Bell Center. But then for that one fraction, the music goes off and the linesman's ready to drop the puck, and you can hear anything. You can hear a cricket. There's that once, fractions of seconds. Mm. And in that moment, Cam Russell says, hey, Ryan, does your coach know you're out here? So it's the first time I heard that. I don't know if it's regurgitated or it's his line, but I thought it was hilarious. But I'm kind of pissed off, and I really am thinking I'm so numb to it that I really am. I mean, it's the NHL, right? It's my third go around at this point, and so anyway, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to go. So the face-off. This is on YouTube, by the way. The face-off happens behind the net, that face-off happens. The puck goes behind the net fairly shortly because I remember like feeling my skates. Are they going to be all right? They were, and they weren't perfect. And the puck comes behind the net, so McCleary falls down. They're out there, and there's this ruckus, and I'm back there, and I realize I go right at Russell because he said this, whatever. I know he's I know he's fucking around. People chirp. He didn't seem too mad or anything, but anyway, now. And it's him or Probert. Probert's literally there pulling me. And again, you can see this on YouTube if you think I'm bullshitting. And I'm like, fuck. So I realize this is Russell. I'm not ready for it, but I think we're going to go. Pretty honest player. I know he's from Halifax, so I've heard about he's a pretty good guy. Being that I've heard about my whole way up. Like I knew Cam Russell when he was 18 playing in the queue because I'm from St. John's and people know him. So anyway, we go. It ends up being TSN High of the Night. Boom, boom, boom. We're going, and I'm going left. I didn't even know how to throw left very good, but it's caught up in the moment at the Bell Center. And we're going boom, 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 back and forth. And then finally, the last two, he puts his ear right here and says, good fight. I say, good fight. We go over to the penalty box, and he says, you're a Maritimer, eh? I said, well, I'm from Newfoundland. And he said, yeah. And he starts asking me about like my career. He's asking me about Todd Gillingham because I didn't realize he played against or with him in the queue or something. I distinctly remember him saying that. I know it's a long time ago, but I write everything down, folks. So like after these, I'm not making this up. So we're in the penalty box, and I remember there's obvious girls, like you said. Remember in Montreal, when I say this to people, they don't. In Montreal, there's sections that there's obviously exotic dancers that are sitting them, right? You know that as well as I do. So over by the penalty box, and a lot of the boys would take their 2 tickets and give them to the exotic dancers from Chez Prix and everything else. So I'm over, I don't want to be stereotypical, but I'm looking next to the box and I'm going, these are definitely a couple of peelers. So I'm in there and Russell's kind of getting a kick out of it. So you know what I do? I get the guy in there got like score sheets, but he's doing the score sheet, but he's got all kinds of extra ones there. So I get him to rip one off and give me the back of it, and I write down you had cell numbers you couldn't text, right? So you could call those. So I wrote down my number, and I slipped it through the glass at the Bell Center, and I gave it to her. And then I came off, So the whistle goes, whatever. I come off, skate across the ice, and Russell says something else. I'm like, yeah, good job. Maybe I'll meet you one day. Really, like that's the conversation that was happening when we came off.
Yeah.
And then I got to the bench, didn't get another shift. Come in after the game as I'm getting ready. Phone rings, and the girls met us at Da Vinci, and we had a great night. And I don't know if
There you
Moose.
go. That's awesome.
I don't know if he was married or anything. I don't really remember, so I won't tell everything that happened. But it was more me than him. But we went there, and then all the boys showed up. We had a great time. Yeah, we had a great time. That was
Oh,
my
God.
last shift.
That's a
in
good.
the NHL.
That's wild. That's your last. Yeah,
Yeah,
your
I
last
had
shift in
no
the
idea.
NHL. What a great story. Eating hot dogs, having a Coke, fighting Cam Russell. That's awesome. Well, that's a great way to finish. I know you got to go, and I know I got to go too. But Terry, awesome as always. Super, really appreciate your time. You're obviously one of those guests that you can come back every, we'd have you on every week, and I think there'd be a new story there and get people laughing. I know I appreciate it. But yeah, thanks so much. And till next time, my friend.
I really appreciate it, my man. Good luck with
Oh, are you
everything. I
there?
appreciate it. Again, it's Terry Ryan 2020 on Instagram. If you want a book out there, you're listening, and shoot me a note, and I'll get one out to you. Podes, good luck with everything you do, and I will have you back on my podcast, Tales with TR, again soon.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, Podes.